Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum students. I am Sabir Hasnain, your science subject teacher. In this lecture, we will further discuss about more organ system, chapter number 8. If you remember, in the previous video, we discussed few organ systems like the digestive system, breathing system, circulatory system, and the nervous system in detail. And over there we discussed that the impulses or the messages are transferred by tiny electrical signals, and these impulses can travel in one direction. And at last we discussed there are two kinds of nerve cells. Number one, the sensory nerve cells, and number two, the motor nerve cells. Today we will discuss about the sensory nerve cells and motor nerve cells, and later on about nerves in detail. So here we have a sensory nerve cells. Sensory nerve cells actually, or sensory neurons, carry impulses from the sense receptors around the body to the central nervous system. So look at the image. Here we have sensory neurons and sensory nerve cells, and we have at the bottom we have sense receptors on our skin, and these sense receptors all around the body, and they transfer information to the central nervous system. So these are the motor nerve cells, and the signals are coming from the central nervous system. So here impulses from the central nervous system to the different parts of our body, like to muscles and glands. So it's like in sensory nerve cells. Again, let's take an example. If we touch our hand, or unfortunately we get an electric shock on our hand, the message is transferred through the sense receptors or sensory nerve cells to the brain. So sensory nerve cells actually transfer the message here from different parts of the body to the brain, and the brain got the message. There is an electric shock, or there is a hot pot, and that message is received at our brain or the central nervous system, and then from the central nervous system the message sent to the muscles and the glands, and that through electrical impulse in the form of electrical impulses, and these electrical impulses further transfer to different parts of our body, and our hand move quickly away from that electric wire or the hot pan. So that's why we have two different nerve cells. One is sensory and the second one is motor nerve cells or neurons. Now, nerves. Question is this: what is a nerve? So actually nerve is a bundle of nerve fibers, and these nerve fibers can comprise both with the sensory and motor nerve cells. Here we have both these nerve. Here we have a structure of a nerve. It consists of both sensory and motor nerve cells, or the mixture of both. A nerve is exactly or bit like an electrical cable, or if you observe the internet cable consists of 10 to 12 different colors, and these 10 to 12 in a single cable. This is a single. Let's suppose this is a single cable, and inside it there are more than 10 or 12 cables. So those wires are the nerve fibers are like wires. So the wires inside that are basically the nerve fiber, and there is an insulation at the top of electrical cable or internet cable, and that insulation, a fat plastic around that is like a cable. So the fatty insulation on this nerve is like the plastic around the cable. This is how. Now further we are going to learn about voluntarily or involuntarily or reflex actions. So whenever an action is produced with the involvement of thoughts, they are called voluntarily actions. Okay, and it involves actions like walking, eating, jumping, and running. So all these matters, all these actions, like if we walk, it means we are thinking about. If we write anything, okay, that involves thinking. Okay, if we want to memorize anything or we memorize something, that involves thinking. So these actions are actually voluntary actions. Okay, so those actions which will take place without our willingness, okay, without involvement of our brain or our thoughts, that those actions are called involuntary actions, or the reflex action, like digestion, heartbeat, sneezing. These are the few examples of reflex actions. These actions, I mean the reflex actions, are very fast and save our body from the harm. Now, so as I told you, there are two reflex actions, voluntary and the reflex actions. So few reflex actions are given in above table, and the stimulus, for example, flash of bright light, and the reflex action related to it is pupil, the eye gets smaller. So our eye gets smaller whenever the bright light comes into our eye, and when food gets into the windpipe. So if we eat something and sometimes the food goes to our windpipe, what would be the reflex action at that time? What would we do? That's coughing. So it's a reflex action, quick reaction in which our thoughts are not involved. So when you are hungry and smell your favorite food, saliva that came into your mouth, and when your hand touches the live electric wire, and what would be the result? Arm moves quickly away from that wire. This is again a reflex action in which our thoughts are not involved. And at last, the fifth one, the body, when our body gets heat or hot, and the reflex action would be sweating. So in all these cases, in all these stimulus, our thoughts are not involved. So the response is actually the